Welcome back, guys. So I put out a video just over a week ago with regards to a lady by name Halima Tamando Mnyobisi. She's 38 years old, and that case was brought to you from South Africa, and she was wanted by the police in a domestic violence incident where she had now brought her husband to the hospital, and she was suspected of stabbing him for about 30 times. Yeah, if you are not familiar with that case, just go to my playlist, you can check it, and then you watch that and you come back for the update here, because as it stands now, there has been a breakthrough. This is a high profile case, and Halima Tamando Mnyobisi has now come into contact with the law, because typically when we talk about cases of domestic violence, irrespective of where you find yourself across the world, most often than not, one would naturally expect that the aggressor would be a male. But trust you me, there are some females out there who are equally or even sometimes more dangerous, because if you've seen the case of Boone, I think Sarah Boone or something, who locked her boyfriend in a suitcase and watched him run out of air and pass on whilst she was mocking him, you would begin to understand how wicked some people can be. I always say that whether somebody is good or evil, or when it comes to conversations of good and evil, I personally don't think that it has to do with a particular class of gender, where sometimes you hear some people say, oh, women are evil or men are evil. I think it comes down to human beings as a whole, and human beings, it could either end up being a female or a male. It has nothing to do with a particular gender, but I digress. Now, Halima Tamando Mnyobisi, she brought her husband to the hospital in September of 2023, and she just ran away after checks had shown that her husband had been stabbed over 30 times. And sadly, her husband passed on whilst in the care of the hospital. Her husband was a teacher, and this case became a high-profile case. Halima Tamando just sped off in a black Mazda 4x4, and she was never to be seen again for over a year. But the police didn't relent. They launched a manhunt for her. They arrested her brother-in-law and other 2 accomplices, and they charged them with robbery and attempted murder, and the last warrant for her was for her arrest, and she some way somehow was on her best attempts to evade the law. But as it stands now, as at the 28th of November 2024, there has been a significant breakthrough in this high-profile murder case, because Halima Tamando Mnyobisi has been arrested in Sandton of the Gauteng province in South Africa after being on the run for over a year. Now, her arrest cracks this case wide open, because for the first time now, the principal suspect is in the grips of the law, and a conversation can now begin with regards to her being put to a situation where she would have to give a statement and explain her role in her husband ending up being inflicted with 30 stab wounds, and how come she ended up bringing him. Now, this is what I see playing out with regards to possible possibilities. I wouldn't be surprised if Halima Tamando either says that she's not the one who inflicted the injuries and unalived her husband, but that maybe it was somebody else and she saw him after the act and rushed him to the hospital, or if evidence is stacked up against her to the point that she will be unable to play such a card. I wouldn't be surprised if she comes out to say that she did it, but then she did it in self-defense. Sorry. And that is where it would get tricky if it gets to that point, because most people try to play the self-defense card, especially females, when they are caught up in domestic violence issues, but they don't understand that in the eyes of the law, When you talk about self-defense, it's not just about any action you took to defend yourself. It doesn't work that way. Self-defense actually requires that the force that you apply or you allegedly applied to defend yourself by claiming self-defense, that force you applied should be equal to the force that the aggressor was applying on you. So, for example, if the aggressor was applying a force on you with regards to, say, a physical attack, maybe grabbing your hand, you can't say that you defending yourself from such an attack is what resulted in or is what manifested in giving that person 30 stab wounds. No, it doesn't work that way. But most people don't understand it. Most people think that all I have to say is no matter what I've done, I'm defending myself. No, you can't be defending yourself from a minimal attack and end up taking the life of the person and say that it was self-defense. No. At worst, even if you don't get murder, it's likely you get manslaughter. I'm not a judge, I'm not a lawyer, but this is the little law that I know as a layman. So I'm following this case. It's going to be a very interesting case, honestly, because I foresee that when lawyers come in, some of her lawyers may try to coach her on the best story to peddle to either negate the evidence and beat the case if she is actually the culprit, or to lessen her sentence if the evidence is overwhelming such that she wouldn't be able to beat the case, but then they could try and peddle something else that might end up beating the story down. And I'm hoping that the prosecutor is also going to be really up and doing on this case, because personally I believe that some of these things are easily avoidable. Most often than not, we are seeing a trend coming up where you have victims who are actually not victims. That is, they are actually the culprits, but after they commit the acts, they try to portray themselves as victims of the one they victimized and unalived. And because the person is not here to speak for him or herself, they try to peddle an image and a story which the jury will be convinced by, and they will either beat the case or get a lesser sentence. It is a trend that keeps showing. If you look at the case of Sarah Boom, she was trying to peddle such a thing by claiming that she did that to her boyfriend because he had been aggressive towards her over the years. And so that was her also sort of reacting in her victim state. And I was glad when the courts didn't buy it, because there are recordings that show that she was taunting the guy. She was happy that was happening to the guy. The guy told her he couldn't breathe, and she responded by telling the guy that he deserves it for what he's been doing. So this was somebody who was clearly vindictive and had planned out everything and was just exacting her deadly vengeance on this person. That is not to say I'm condemning Halima Tamando Minobisi, that she's doing the same thing. No, I'm just giving a broad analysis. It could happen that she's truly innocent. I don't even know what she's going to put up in her defense. I'm just trying to give an analysis of what could have possibly happened, because she will still have a story to say. Whether that is true or not, I am not in a position to determine. But one thing that remains a fact is that her husband is dead from 30 stab wounds, and dead men tell no tales. That is the fact. As to how that dead guy will get justice, I leave that to the courts and the prosecutors and the investigators. I'm following the case, as and when there are any updates, I'll definitely bring them to you. Watch our other videos, share them so we learn to protect and secure ourselves and our loved ones. Subscribe to the channel if you are yet to do so. I'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe out there.